no one has the right, we have to rise to the truth that nobody has the right to tell us how I should have been affected by my experience. Okay, so that's the first thing. You have to give yourself permission to say that this experience for me was traumatizing. It may not have done, you may have been able to get over it in 2 days. That's not my story, and that is okay, right? So that's the first thing. And so then after I deprogram myself from allowing other people to tell me what my experience should be, then I have to journey towards my healing.
Welcome to the Your Story Matters podcast with Branon Dempsey. Your Story Matters is dedicated to help survivors of abuse grow in their healing and recovery from trauma. While we may not be able to change our beginning, we do have the power to change the ending. We hope that you'll be inspired by today's message because you matter. Your healing matters because your story matters. Here's Branon.
Thanks so much, survivors of abuse, friends coming back to the Your Story Matters podcast. We have a special guest today. I can't wait to get to him and the topics that we're going to be introducing. And before we do that, please make sure that you click and subscribe anywhere that you're watching this video or however you're listening to the podcast by audio. And we're grateful that you're here because you'll get all the downloaded new episodes when they drop as you subscribe today. So thanks so much for doing that. So let's ask a question. Have you ever been told that you are to forget the truth? And hearing that phrase spoken by somebody, I know for me that sends triggers, especially if it's nonverbal, because we all know growing up, there was a nonverbal dissertation of what you should and should not do, speak and not speak. And that alone just causes a lot more trauma. And the difficulty with our upbringing is that as we've learned to survive, we've come out of the shadows of our childhood, and yet we go into the jungle of adulthood. As we talk about the past and reconnecting ourselves back to the present, that I find is the most difficult thing that any person can do when it comes to healing. And so I'd like to dive deeper into that and to talk about why making choices and even hard choices is so difficult, but yet so necessary in the way that we function in life, in our careers, our families, our loved ones, and all relationships. And so we have today a great friend. His name is BJ, and he is a writer and professor of psychology, specializes in coaching urban believers how to healthily progress in their careers and communication. But it's not just that. He's written a fantastic book that explains more about the hard decisions that we've had to make as survivors. And so I'm going to just throw it over to BJ. BJ, and welcome you. Thanks so much for coming here today, brother. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great, and I'm glad to be here to talk about these topics with you. For those getting to know me for the first time, I am BJ Communicates. I am a writer and an IO psychology professional. And so as you said a few minutes ago, Brandon, I specialize in helping urban believers healthily progress. That's the key word in their career and communication. And so I do a lot of career and communications coaching. And I have this great series that I'm excited about that I'm continuing. I have a new book that just came out called Hard Conversations Book 2, Over and Over. And so I'm excited to talk to you about that and all the other items that we'll be covering today.
Yeah, awesome. And I just want to do a big shout out to our friend Scott Shuford, who put us together. Nice. Great guy that I've known him forever. And we've grown old together, sad to say. But anyway, BJ, back to you. So when we get into our conversation, my first question to you is, what does it mean to forget the truth when it comes to childhood abuse, and who taught us to do that?
So I think that it's a combination of things. I think number one, sometimes we self-learn that. Psychologically, sometimes things are so traumatic for us that we block out. You've heard of people that grow up and they have lost big chunks of time because of traumatic experiences, and it's our brain's way of protecting us from bad things. And so sometimes as we begin to go on our healing journey, we discover that things have occurred that we've forgotten until it's brought up, or God brings it back to our remembrance so that he can begin to help us with that healing work. And so I think the number one, it's sometimes it's ourselves and it's our way of protecting ourselves. I think another thing that happens comes externally for other people, whether, as you said earlier, it's spoken or it is just cultural by the way people react when we begin to talk about what happened to us. We are subtly aggressed, as what I'll say, to forget it because of how it may make other people feel, what it may do to the family, in the minds of people. And so I think that it's a protection measure either internally or externally. And sometimes the people that are being protected externally are not us. It's protecting everybody else involved or the family name or what it'll do or the shame that it may bring if we begin to talk about it. But the thing is that we never can forget it. We can forgive, we can move forward, but we still remember or should remember what's happened in our life because it can be a part of a beautiful story of God's redemption and God's ability to take what was messy and make it beautiful. So.
That's amazing. I love your words. And that speaks to so many people in our audience that are made up of people who have been abused sexually, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so what can you tell us this? What small ways does childhood trauma show up in adulthood, even when we think we've moved on?
For sure. So that's a loaded question. I think it shows up many ways. I think number one, it can show up in addiction. A lot of people, sometimes we look at the fruit of what somebody is doing without looking at the roots that cause it. And there are many addictions. Not all of them are illegal. So that can show up in drinking. That can show up in drugs. That can show up in overeating. That can show up in overachieving. That can show up in sexing. Right. That can also show up in alternative personalities. And I'm not talking about psychologically. I'm talking about when we begin to build a whole nother persona out of who we were intended to be based on the trauma that happened to us. And you will be surprised at the number of people that are living a different life than they were designed to, not because of this is just who they are. And sometimes even we can believe that that's who we are, but really it's a result of an event that happened in our life. Had that event not happened, I would venture to say a lot of us would not be the person that we're portraying that we are if that had not happened. And no one can say, no, I would still be this person, because no one can go back in time and see who you would have been had that not happened in your life. But we can learn from it. We can heal from it. We can grow from it, and we can become who we were intended to.
Yeah. And I think what makes it worse is when we see what's happening in our government right now and politics, in our presidency, where things are shelved, right? And we tend to pass it off because we think, well, that happened long ago. When the reality is that, but it still happened. And it's still a truth that people are running away from, which is still causing problems. And we do that unknowingly, you're right, within our own walk. And that's how it shows up in our adulthood. And yet, here's the other thing that's compelling to me. Why is telling the truth about what happened in the past, BJ, why is it so terrifying and yet so freeing? Okay.
Oh, and I want to go back to something you just said, because I am
I said a lot.
Yeah. I am a huge, I think a lot, right? I'm introverted, so I think a lot. And so we are living in a time in our country where it seems like there is a push to erase everything that makes a particular group of people feel bad.
Correct.
And so forget what anybody else has been through, what was actually done to other people. If it makes us look bad, feel bad, let's erase it.
Yes.
And that is demonic in nature. That is demonic to say that in order for me to feel good about myself, you continue to feel bad about yourself. you continue to deal with the trauma. And so I think that this is a demonic agenda to cause people, and I am, not only am I a writer, and I don't talk about this all the time in these settings, but I'm also a pastor, and I pastor urban people, my wife and I. And one of the things that is huge for us is for us to let urban people know that you are still valuable you're just as valuable to God. You are just as important to him. You are just as loved. And even in church settings, sometimes that is not always communicated or demonstrated. It can be said on a surface level, but okay, I know that you've been through those things, but don't talk about that here. Let's move on from that. But here's the thing. Though the ramifications and the ripples of that are still happening. People are still living in that today. That it has not gone anywhere. It is not over. And so how can we forget a trauma that is still generationally impacting the people that we say that we love and that we're going to heaven with? How can I see the trauma of what you've been through and say, stop talking about it because it makes me look bad. And whether we say it verbally or not, it makes me look bad. It makes me feel bad about myself. And here's the thing. It's also a sign of immaturity, because maturity says I can acknowledge that you were traumatized by me or my group, and not feel bad about me because it wasn't a personal thing, but I have to acknowledge that it happened. Right. It all great. Not everybody was amazing. And you know, I have people in my family that have done some crazy things, some horrific things, right? But at the same time, it doesn't make me feel bad about myself, because just because they are a part of my family, that doesn't mean that it was me. Yet I can acknowledge the pain and the trauma that they cause to other people. And you can talk about it because as a person, you have a right to. So that's the first thing I want to say. Then the question that you asked me, I think that it is terrifying because we, number one, are afraid of how other people will react to it. Mm. We are afraid that we may be ostracized for talking about what we've been through. We also are afraid of what house will we be bringing down if we begin to talk about it. Sometimes when you have dealt with trauma from a parent, and that parent yet lives, and maybe they have become a different person, but when you start to talk about it, sometimes we're afraid that it's going to sully their name because you knew them then, but now people know them now. Mm. And I think that takes maturity, and that takes conversation. Right, to be able to say, hey, this is my story. And so I think that those are the terrifying parts of it, that will be ostracize themselves from us, or that we may tear down structures and systems and families that were involved because of the fact of it was so long ago. Now, for us, why it is freeing is because we were designed to cast and not carry. We were designed to articulate our experience in a healthy way. So it should not be to cancel somebody. It should be to experience what I've been through, because I cannot heal what I don't give voice to. Mm-hmm. And so when I can admit it to myself, I can admit it to God, and I can say it or write it, it brings a freedom to get it off of me and out of me, because we were designed to cast and not carry.
Mm. Gosh, I love it. This conversation is so good. You know, I was just thinking that we are designed not to forget. Mm-hmm. We are designed to tell our stories. We're designed to point back and say, no, that was wrong. Years ago, generations ago, that was wrong. It's about justice. It's not about revenge, even though we may feel it, but it's about reclaiming what God already put there, which is life to be lived and to be loved. Can we do this, BJ? Can you, we talk about stories. Can you tell us yours?
Sure. So I haven't had, I say it lightly, I haven't had sometimes the traumatic experience that other people have. I grew up with a single mother. My father was always in my life, though him and my mom divorced when I was very young. And so I have some father wounds and some mother wounds, right? Because no matter how great your parents are, they're imperfect people. And especially when they may not know the Lord Jesus. And so there are things that happened to me growing up. My father was a person, he passed away in August, but he was a person that was always in my life, but he struggled with addiction. And so that made him not show up in ways that I wanted him to, or that maybe he should have, right, as a father. And so, of course, as a young man, a young Black man, I needed my father to show me some things that he was unavailable for. And so I grew up with some wounds that I had to bump my head many times, just learning and figuring it out when I had no one before me. Going into being even a pastor in ministry, my wife and I are the first ministers in our whole family line that we know of. And so we've done a lot of things with no blueprint in front of us, where some people come from a great line of, hey, my grandfather did it, then my grandmother, and then no reference point for that, at all. And so oftentimes it's led to feelings of inadequacy and am I enough? Because I didn't have someone who spoke that into me at a young age. And so I've had to get that from God. And the Lord has brought some great people into my life as well, but I had to get that from God. But still there is insecurities that God had to heal.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. And I love the words that you have written on your wall. Those are reminders of God speaking into you. Things that weren't spoken. Yeah, I feel like, you and I are soul brothers, because I too, that describes part of my past as well. My father also was addicted to many different things, was not there, absent, very much the same with other members of my family. And I had to heal from those. It's just weird how abuse works, because that's just only one layer. There's many other layers. Let's talk about your book, because in your book, you talk about the many layers that people have to go through in what you title your book, Hard Conversations.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that and how, it's reflective in everyday struggles of living with buried trauma?
Sure. So this Hard Conversations is a series. So the book that just came out is book 2, Over and Over. And so this is the continuation of the story of 5 people of color from diverse backgrounds. And these, both men and women, is 2 guys and 3 girls who don't know each other. So each story is a standalone story. And so each of them have built successful lives. They've achieved a lot of things in careers. Some of them have had families, some of them are having families, yet they are still utterly broken on the inside and can't figure out why. And so book 1 is almost like everything coming to a head. It starts out with them losing things, losing employment, and it makes them go on a journey to say something with me is not right. Something in me is not inadequate. I still feel broken. I still feel like something just is not right. And I believe that all of us, no matter who you are, where you are, what color you are, have had those moments to say, listen, I know that I've achieved a lot because I function, but something's missing. Something's broken and I can't put my finger on it. And so they go on this journey of discovering the first book. And now in this book, they made up in their mind, what they discover is that everything that they're broken by has happened in their past. And instead of addressing it, some of it is molestation, some of it is just absence of parents, some of it has been traumatization by parents and other people in their life. And so they go on a journey to realize that in order for me to move forward, I have to go and have a hard conversation with the people in my life that wronged me, that traumatized me, that hurt me. And as scary as it is, I know that I'll never be able to move forward without doing it. And so in book 2, which just came out, they are continuing that journey. They've made that decision, and now they are putting things in place to start to have those conversations. And it is terrifying, just like it is for us. It is terrifying to actually have to now. It's one thing to make a decision to do it. It's another thing to actually have to do it and to have to confront Freddy Krueger or confront the big bad wolf in our life, or to confront something that other people have told us, just leave it alone. Move on, just leave it alone. But how do I move on when I can't?
Right.
How do I move on when I'm still anchored to what happened? And some of them are trying to build new relationships with people, but even the people that they're bringing into their life can notice that you're not as open, you're not as available, and something is there, and they try to hide it and mask it. But people that really love you, they can't even love the people that are new people in their life that they really want to the way that they want to, because they have not addressed what happened in their past.
I mean, you said something really valuable. You can't shut off. You can't just get over it.
Mm-hmm.
When staying silent shaped you all your life, or lies that were told you that you have to unlearn to begin healing, and then also confronting what you were told to ignore. What's the cost of pretending something didn't happen, and who ends up paying for it?
I think that, so the cost of it is the version of you were intended to be. Because, I'm a man of faith. So the Bible says, confess your faults one to another that you might be healed. And so until it costs you the version of you, the free version of you, right? The free version of you that is able to be what God intended. Jeremiah 1 says, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. I sanctified, ordained you, called you to be, meaning that before we had a body, we had an intention from God of who we were made to be. And so even though God factors in all the things that will happen to us in our life, he didn't cause it. And so the reason that he factored it in is because he knows through Christ that we're able to heal no matter what has happened in our lives, no matter what family we were born into. And so when we don't go on that journey of healing, it causes us the intention. It causes us to miss who we were put in the earth to be, because we're not in the wrong generation, in the wrong time, in the wrong time zone, in the wrong city. If we are being led of God, then this is who we are meant to be when we were meant to be. And it means that we carry something that the world needs. And so when we don't address our trauma, we find ourselves not being able to be who we are intended to be. We become a offshoot or a multiversal, I'm a comic book fan, a multiversal version of who we are really supposed to be. And therefore, we rob the world of what we carry in its totality and its fullness. And who pays the cost for it is not just us, but those we are meant to impact, those we are meant to love, and those who've come into our life really to love us. Because if we don't ever heal from it, we don't even allow people to love us the way they really want to. And it doesn't, as a man, it does not mean that you will not get married. It does not mean that you won't have children, but there will always be a lack of something that even if people don't articulate it, they can feel from you. If you don't go on that journey of healing with God and your therapist or your counselor, if you don't go on that healing journey, even if your kids never say, Dad, you weren't there for me, they feel that something is missing because something is blocked off. When you're unhealed, you block off parts of yourself, and you can't love people because you're afraid to. And so it takes going on that healing journey. Or your children, you may have given them everything, you may have come to every game, but they won't feel that you love them. And it's because you blocked off versions of love and pieces of love in you to protect yourself.
It's a straight dope, man. That's what it's about. So, what do you say to someone who still doubts their story because others told them that it wasn't that bad? And then what does reclaiming that story look like? Not just as the moment, but as a daily act of resilience and healing?
So I think that we have to arise to the truth of the fact that nobody else can tell me how bad my experience was. Because people deal with things. My mom is one of 10. People can grow up in the same household and have completely different experiences and be affected by those experiences completely different.
Yeah.
So no one has the right. We have to rise to the truth that nobody has the right to tell us how I should have been affected by my experience. Okay. So that's the first thing. You have to give yourself permission to say that this experience for me was traumatizing. It may not have done, you may have been able to get over it in 2 days. That's not my story. And that is okay. Right. So that's the first thing. And so then after I deprogram myself from allowing other people to tell me what my experience should be. Then I have to journey towards my healing. I hope that answers your question. I think there was a...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does. It gets me excited because I just love hearing you speak, because these are words that we need to hear especially when we live in the world. And as I said earlier, we live in this environment of, well, let's not look at the bad. Let's not look at the lies. They're not lies. They're just your misinterpretation of it. I think we're so bombarded by that. I know that I have trouble watching the news each day, because when I see the news, it's only a personification of what's underneath within that person or people. Mm-hmm. And then I look at it like, well, gee, I will never let my abusers off the hook or let them go unaccounted, because then what does that say about what I went through? It invalidates me. And so it just hurts. And I think that's why also many survivors struggle with voicing their story, because of that reason, because of the fear that you're being told that, no, this is the way you're supposed to remember it. It didn't look that bad. I didn't have that version, like what you said. I've grown up in the same house. I didn't see that. And so who made them God, number one, to claim that was not yours? So that was a lot being said. But what's going off in your mind right now?
So I think a couple of things. I think that as we journey to heal from whatever's happened, we also have to respect other people's experience as well. Because there are times when people have been traumatized and they were not and I say this, they were not the person that was abused. So for instance, siblings who grow up in a house and one sibling was abused by a loved one and the other sibling was not. And so I think that sometimes we have to be careful that we don't get angry with the other person to say, for them to tell their story, to say, well, I grew up in a house and it didn't happen to me. And sometimes I think that people that have been traumatized get upset that they are telling their story. But if you want, it's a sowing and reaping thing. If you want them to respect your story, you have to respect that they may have had a different experience, even with the same person. And I'm not just talking about sexual abuse, but sometimes, I know people that have grown up in houses and one person may hate the father and another sibling loves him. And they'll say, didn't you know how he treated us growing up? And they'll be mad at the sibling that says, well, that wasn't my experience with him. He wasn't as hard on me as he was on you. And so therefore we become angry and we fall out with family because we don't respect other people's experiences. Another thing that goes off in my mind is that I love the story to hear the story of Joyce Myers, where Joyce Myers was sexually abused by her father from the time she was a little girl to the time she was 18. Wow. And her mother knew about the abuse and did nothing. And then for many years before she came to Christ, she was upset and angry about it, depressed about it, had many issues because of it. And then she began to go through healing with counseling and walking with God. And then when her parents got older, God asked her to take care of her mom and dad. And she did. And she talks about she always says that I don't tell what happened to me just in casual conversation. I do it for the sake of a sermon or if it relates to the topic, because I don't want to live there. And then she talks about how at the end of his life, she was able to lead her father to Christ, and he apologized for all the things, even though for years they would not acknowledge it. At the end, they did. And he apologized and came to her saying, will you ever forgive me? He just cried all day long right before he died. And I say that because when you were talking, what was going through my mind is a part of being empowered to be free is in forgiveness. It's not forgetting what happened to you. It's not acting like it never happened with them. But I think what it is it is allowing the grace, because I've been forgiven for many things in my life. I have not been perfect. I have not done everything right. And I know how I have been forgiven, that forgiveness is the gift that frees us, not them.
That's it. And that's why so many people have a hard time with forgiveness. And so many people say, well, I don't want to forgive because they don't need my forgiveness. But you're right. Forgiveness is about you. It's about releasing that anger and that hurt. It's not about letting people off the hook.
Yeah. And that's a key. And I can only talk about it from the perspective of what I believe, right? I believe that if we don't forgive others, we're not forgiven. And so if I want to be forgiven for all the mistakes that I made, all the mistakes I'm making, and all the mistakes I may make one day, then I have to forgive others. And how I believe that we go to heaven, it says that if I don't forgive others, then neither will I be forgiven. So how can I go to heaven if I'm not forgiven? It takes me being forgiven by God. And so I free myself because I do it, number one, for me, because I want to be free. People can't live rent free in my heart or my mind.
That's it.
I have to let that go. And if I trust in a God that will save my soul, I have to also trust in a God that will repay everything that's been done wrong to me. Right. And so I don't have to be saying, because some people say I won't forgive because I don't want them to get off the hook. But if they are unrepentant, if they have not changed from what they've done, they're not off the hook. No. And I have to trust in a God that can get them better than I ever. And so I can't do that. If I say I believe the scripture, if I say that I believe God, then I can't say I believe that I'm going to heaven when I die, but I don't believe that you reap what you sow. And so I don't have to see it. I don't have to be there to experience how they got it back, when they got it back, where they got it back. I just have to trust that the same God that cares for me, that vengeance is his. And if they don't repent, if they never get it right, that the Lord knows how to deal with that. I have to trust him. If I'm going to trust him in one area, I got to trust him in all. And hear me, that is hard for some people, but it's a part of the lesson and the learning and the growing to say that if I'm going to live by faith, that I have to believe holistically the word.
That's right. It's almost like it is another level of healing. Because that's where the spiritual healing comes in that we're not aware of. And reason why that's so important is because that is the truth. So let me ask you this, and we do like a lightning round of these podcasts at the very end to wrap up. I want to know from you, use one word to describe what it felt like to finally write your truth, BJ.
It felt like home. And it felt like home.
That's so good.
Yeah, it felt like home because even though my books are inspirational urban fiction, every time that I sit down to write, I always say the same prayer: Holy Spirit, help me to tell somebody's story. Because my story is your story. When you read my books, no matter where you are, you know someone, an aunt, an uncle, it brings you in mind of maybe something you've gone through in your life. And so the Holy Spirit is the only one that can connect those things to say, oh, this is somebody's story. And so it feels like home. When I read the characters, it feels like somebody that I know. It feels like somebody that you know, somebody I worked with, someone I went to school with. It feels like that. So it feels like home. That articulating the experiences of people is a human experience. The scripture says that there's no temptation that is taken to us yet but that which is common unto man. And meaning that we, no matter where you are socially, economically, that we all have similar life experiences. Life happens to all of us, right? No matter if you have a silver spoon or a wooden spoon or no spoon, life happens to all of us. And so articulating the stories of the people in these books, it is like home because it's people that I've known. Some of it is peppered in, is not all my experience, but peppered in is some of my own life challenges and some of my own feelings. But it is home.
Your words, I can't tell you just how they're resonating with me. When you said the word home, that's exactly what I felt like. That was exactly my word too when I came to heal. And it's because and I thought about that too, that, we start out in life, right, birthed by God. We go through these journeys and these circles, and we go through the struggle and the pain and the survival, all to get back to the very place that we first began, which is home.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing how that all connects together, because we all want to be home.
Yeah.
We don't want to go back to the same home, maybe, of what it represents that we ran from, but it's a home that was intended to be, not like the way that it was in our reality. What about this, BJ? A moment, tell us, what is a moment in your book that still gets you emotional every time?
So there is, in the new book, there is a funeral scene. And people that have read the book so far say that I had to stop reading and come back to it because it was too vivid. And the reason I could write that is, and this new book is dedicated to my dad. I didn't have the relationship that I would have wanted with my dad, but I had a great relationship with my dad. And I say in the book that when my dad died at the end of August, that it released a pain in my body that I cannot explain. My lungs hurt,
Wow, yeah.
my bones hurt, my eyes hurt for so long. And I write a funeral scene in it. And the reason I could write the emotions and the depths of the character is because I was living it. I was living that in that moment. And so when I read that, or when I read the dedication, because the dedication is to my dad, I still get them. The first time that the publisher sent it back to me for me to read it, I boohooed. I boohooed and cried, because even though it's almost coming up on a year now, at that time when I first got the publishing copy of it, that's my dad. And regardless of what we've gone through in life, I love my dad, and I will always need him and always love him. And so for him to pass away unexpectedly, it did something in me. And so that connects to me. Every time that I read it, it connects to me, that funeral scene.
Wow. I can see that. My father passed away also back in 21. And I too remember that pain of releasing it. And yet still my body feels the pain every year on the anniversary of it. And that's a pain that I remember to continually work through that process of letting it be okay. Tell me this, tell us in this last wrap-up question, why do people's story matter?
Your story matters because it is not only your personal freedom, but is the freedom of the next generation. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. And so many times when your story is forgotten or goes untold, you leave the next generation with less information that is needed for them to live a better life. And so it is important for us to tell our stories, because not only does it tell them what happened to us, it tells them what landmines to avoid, and it tells them what paths to walk down. And so when we stop telling our stories, our next generation stops learning and growing. And so our goal should be that I go down the path so that I can tell you the way. And so when we stop telling our stories, or we leave out parts of our story because of embarrassment, because of we don't want people to look at us differently, we rob them of vital information that makes their lives better. And so it's our freedom, but it's their betterment. And so that's why, a lot of times in church, we need the older believers as well as the younger ones. And we need the older ones to tell us what you've been through and what you've experienced, and not to hold back, but tell us how you came out of it. We need to know it, because you've walked down the path that I'm yet to walk. And so I need to know your story. And also it helps us to walk in compassion for one another. People have a lot more compassion for you when they know the story, even if you're doing wrong. When they can connect why you're doing wrong with what you've been through, people can be more patient and compassionate with you. And so telling your story helps to foster compassion and patience from others in our lives.
I love it. Gosh, I wish we were sitting in the same room, because I want a hug by you.
Virtual hug.
Right. Tell us, where can people find your two books, Hard Conversations?
Sure. So you can go anywhere that online books are sold. You can get the ebook. You can also get the physical copies. Amazon is having a little problem right now at the time of the taping of this podcast, but you can still order it on Amazon and maybe a delay in the shipping. But you can order the ebook or you can order the physical copy of the book. In just a couple of weeks, you'll be able to go online and find the audiobook for book 1 and book 2. Hard Conversations, book 1 is called Hard Conversations, book 1, Breadcrumbs to the Past. Book 2 is called Hard Conversations, book 2, Over and Over, because until we deal with what we're going through, the same situation will happen to us over and over. The same circumstances will continue to arise until we deal with it. And you can follow me on social media. BJ Communicates on all social media platforms.
Awesome. All right. BJ Communicates, professional psychology, artist, pastor, writer. We're so glad that you're here today. Thanks for sharing your story, BJ.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And survivors, thanks so much for joining us today here on Your Story Matters. And it's something where you can listen to someone else's story, but it's another thing when you can share it. So we ask that you do that from this episode today to let others know maybe what you've learned, but maybe what others you feel would be a comfort for them. So until next time, remember, guys, your story matters. Bye.
Thanks for joining us today on Your Story Matter podcast with Branon Dempsey. Got a comment or an idea? DM us on our socials or text at 512-537-6677. Did you know that when you rate and comment on this podcast, you are not only helping us spread the word about Your Story Matters, but you are letting people know that their story matters too? Please kindly rate and comment on today's podcast. This has been a Your Story Matters digital production. Copyright 2024. Hope you were inspired from today's episode as you grow in your recovery from trauma, because your story matters.